Hello class, my presentation is on subqueries. What is a subquery? It's just a query within a query in a SQL statement. So subqueries are nested queries that give data to the enclosing query or the top query or the first query. Subqueries can return one value or a list of records. Some guidelines for subqueries: they need to be enclosed in parentheses. The order by clock can't be used. That can only be used in the main select statement. And you've got to use like for like. Use single row operators with single row subqueries. So let's look at an example. Here is a student table, and here's a marks table. And our query is going to give us some information about the two tables. And this in blue is the first outer query, and this in red is the inner query, the subquery. So let's take that one first because it's a little easier to understand. We're going to select the total marks from marks. So total marks from marks, where the student ID is equal to V002. So that's this row right here. So this 80 is what we're going to pretend is right here. So 80 is the result of the inner query. So now just replace this information with the number 80 in your mind. So this first select statement says, go ahead and select the student ID and the name from the student table and the total marks from the marks table, where the student IDs are equal, here and here, and the total marks from this marks table is greater than 80, because we just figured out this was 80. So anywhere that these total marks are greater than 80 is what we want to show or display with the student ID, name, and total marks. So this is the result of that. We know that there are two, and we can just see this, that there's two values that are greater than 80, and that is this one right here and this one right here, and those two correspond to Abe and Adelphos. This is really easy to just look at the tables and see what the values are, but when our databases get really, really big, these queries make a really big difference of making our job really easy. So those are the two that are displayed when we have this as our query and our subquery. So now an example of some of the things that we're working on, we've got our car classification table and our inventory table. And if I were to write a SQL statement with a subquery, here's an example of just one, where I'm going to start with the subquery first. So we want to pick where our inventory stock is greater than 5 from our inventory table, and we're going to go ahead and select the classification ID where that happens. So in our car, we want a car classification table. We want to select the classification name from car classification table, where the classification ID is in, this is the in operator, where our inventory stock is greater than 5. And so the result of that is 4 classification names that have an inventory stock of greater than 5. So I want to show you what that looks like in our database. If we are in our car classification table and we pop in here to our SQL and we write our statement and we hit go, that was just a copy and paste from what I showed you on the slide. These are our results, and we can verify that if we want over on our inventory table. I'm looking at the inventory stock everywhere that it's greater than 5, so it's greater than 5 here, 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 and here. And what we want is we want the classification ID to then tell us what the name is so that we can display the name. So we've got classification ID 2 and 3 and 1 and 5. And so when we display the 2, 3, 1, and 5, we've got those 4 that will show up. Just to show you one more time, put that in, and that gives us these names that show up. So that's how that works. If we show you one last example of this new order table, it's got some information as like number, order amount, advance amount, or order date. And this SQL statement wants us to set the order date. We want to update it in this update statement, where our order amount minus our advance amount is less than whatever our subquery says. So if we come over here to our order amount, our top row says 3,500 and our advance amount is 2,000. Subtract those two, 1,500 is the number we want to picture in our head right here. And then when we select for our subquery, we want to select the minimum order amount from orders. And here's our order table. So we want to select the minimum amount from the order amount, and that is 500. So now that we know 500 is the number we are looking for on this side of the equation. So 500 is 500 greater than 1,500 for this first row? No, it's not. So we don't need to change that date. So everywhere that that is true, we want to change the date. So if we pop down here, 2,500 minus 400, is that less than? No, let's leave that date alone. Is 500 minus 100 less than 500? Yes, it is. So this is going to end up getting changed. It's going to be updated to this information when we're done. The rest of it goes through the rest of the table, and it gives us 7 rows updated. We can't see all of them in here, but that's how that update statement is working with that subquery. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was just a refresher of what you already know. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much.